Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for a Disney Plus review, and today I'm going to be talking about Turning Red. Turning Red is the latest animated film to be released by Pixar and tells the story of Mei Lee, a Chinese-Canadian teenager from Toronto living life as a model student who tries to balance between earning her parents' approval and spending time with her best friends. One night, after having a nightmare, Mei wakes up and discovers to her horror that she is transformed into a giant red panda, the result of an ancestral tradition that affects every female member of her family, and this causes a rift between her and her family and friends as she must wait for a ritual to take place while coming of age at the same time. I've yet to watch a Pixar film that has disappointed me, and it seems that this one will carry on the tradition of the stellar work the studio continues to put out. It has a fantastic message to say about seeking independence and growing into adulthood, while wrapping it in a delightfully entertaining package. The protagonist, Mei, is relatable right from the start. Contrary to her mother's wishes, she's obsessed with a boy band called Four Town, and her main goal of the story is simply to be able to buy a ticket to see one of their concerts. It's simple in scope, but this is what makes the story work so well. It isn't just another save the world scenario like in a lot of other big budget animations. Instead, it's a real story about growing up and struggling to shake off established conventions imposed by family, on top of the usual growing pains that come with adolescence. In this sense, it's easy to sympathize with her character, as she tries to live the best of both worlds in tending to her family duties while trying to appease her friends by hanging out with them. Having been through something like this myself in the past, this endeared me to her character even more. But Mei's struggles don't stop there. As mentioned earlier, Mei must manage living with the ability to spontaneously transform into a red panda, which occurs anytime she experiences an intense emotion like anger or excitement, and this ends up being a double-edged sword that is handled extremely well. On one hand, Mei is able to get a better handle of her ability and can transform at will. This results in a lot of humorous events taking place, which are both funny and serve to show how her character grows and becomes more accustomed to her situation over time. But on the other hand, this does affect her self-image at a time in her life where she's already going through big changes. At times, it becomes too much for her to bear, and she'll give in to her negative emotions, which prevents her from being able to turn human again, piling on her pain even more. In this regard, I was surprised at how mature the movie story could get. Of course, it's still family-friendly, but there's a number of topics explored such as menstruation, attraction to boys, and body image among others that I did not expect to see in a Pixar film, and all of it is handled in a delicate and mature manner. The relationship between Mei and her mother Ming was probably my favorite thing about the movie. Her mother is aware of how Mei's condition affects her because she had the same condition as she did, and so this makes her already overprotective helicopter parenting go into overdrive. This results in some embarrassing scenarios taking place that causes Mei to drift away from her and spend more time with her friends. While some of these scenarios are a little extreme, I think everyone can admit they've been embarrassed by their parents at least a few times in their life. And while I understood Mei's reactions, I also felt bad for Ming because she was simply looking out for her daughter. Even though she could technically be considered the antagonist, she's portrayed in a way that's both realistic and heartbreaking, as I was able to relate to her almost as much as I did with Mei, and this is a hallmark of excellent writing. Mei's friends help offload some of the more emotional weight in the movie. All of them have unique personalities that are a joy to behold, especially Maitreyi Ramakrishnan's role as the deadpan Priya, who always got a chuckle out of me every time she spoke. They're all supportive of what Mei is going through, which makes for heartwarming scenes that will leave the viewer feeling warm and fuzzy, though it isn't always like this either. They become increasingly more alienated by Mei's mother and Mei trying to earn her mother's approval, with her friend Miriam in particular being singled out. I won't say much more about the dynamic between all the characters involved, but I really enjoyed seeing this tightrope balancing act that Mei has to manage. Her relationships shift from one direction to another, made more complicated by her panda predicament, and I was completely invested in watching her figure things out. The movie isn't completely bogged down in drama though. At the end of the day, it is a Pixar movie, and anyone who's seen their past work will know what to expect in terms of comedy, featuring a mix of slapstick, awkward situations, and witty dialogue. The whole angle about the upcoming concert was a ton of fun. Mei's ability becomes known by people she goes to school with, and she's able to exploit this in a way that she can raise money so that she can buy tickets for her and her friends to see Four Town. This results in creative montages that are entertaining and also highlights the rift that grows between her and her mother. Something else that intrigued me about this movie was the fact that it takes place in Toronto. And being Canadian and having been to Toronto many times myself, there were a lot of things in it that made me geek out. The whole movie is an example of how insane Pixar's attention to detail is. Some of these things include Tim Hortons donuts, the Blue Ontario license plates, and a public school named after Lester B. Pearson, just to name a few. Even the non-Canadian things like May's homework and the food she eats are so immaculate in detail they look like the real thing, which added to the realism of the narrative. And on that note, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that the quality of the animation is absolutely outstanding. It is easily one of the most gorgeous looking films I've seen in recent years, right down to the very follicle of May's panda hair. Everything about it is a feast for the eyes. Every time May transforms, it's accompanied by a pink explosion that never gets old to watch. The character models move fluidly, and the Toronto cityscape is lovingly crafted to the last brick, with a variety of color palettes that keep it from being just another dull gray city. The movie is just as much a love letter to Chinese culture as it is to Canadian culture too. I'm not as familiar with Chinese culture myself, but all of it looks beautiful in this film. The attention to detail remains with the panda statues, the architecture, and the customs, and it also allows for the more fantastical elements of the story to be presented with visual flair. I think one would have to reach really far in order to find a complaint about this movie. The only thing I sort of took issue with was that May's relatives, including her grandmother, are kind of rushed in terms of development, but they still contributed to the story in their own unique way. I was also looking forward to seeing more of Tyler in this movie. He acts as a bully of sorts toward May, and I was eager to see how he would work past his attitude and become friends with her. This does happen to an extent, but once again it feels just a little rushed in how it plays out. Most of these things are nitpicks anyway, and never hamper the movie at large. The story stakes are always ramping up to a point that I didn't mind the more questionable things, and it ends with a thrilling finale that I did not expect to be as intense as it was. Overall, Turning Red is the latest in a long line of phenomenal successes that Pixar has under their belt, telling an emotional coming-of-age story in mature fashion while leaving plenty of room for the audience to have fun along the way. If you like Pixar movies or animated movies in general, you owe it to yourself to check this one out as soon as you can. It is easily one of the best films of the year. It's clear that this movie was made with a lot of passion put into it, and this passion is noticeable within the first few seconds. Relatable characters, stunning visuals and attention to detail, a mature storyline, and delightful entertainment value all contribute to make this one of the best films Pixar has ever made. What did you think about this movie? Did you love it as much as I did, or were there some things about it that you took issue with? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Turning Red. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Italian comedy Marilyn's Eyes. Bye bye!